the laziest guy. No vids for almost a year, and they sucked all in all. Now I wanna make a couple guides for Conquest and hey, Lunatic mode, here we go. So in case you didn't understand any or all of that stupid bit I just did, basically I'm going to be doing Fire Emblem Conquest guides for individual characters based on the idea that you're going to be playing Lunatic difficulty, which effectively means the strategies are going to be optimized for the early to mid-game performance. That's usually when Lunatic mode is the most difficult. Late game certainly can be hard as well, but we're not looking at what's going to be best overall in the long run, like for PvP builds or nothing like that. I mean, I might mention that stuff from time to time, but overall, not the concern of these guides. So that being said, let's jump right into our first one, of course, Corrin. So there are three main criteria by which we'll evaluate units in these guides. The first is availability. Now this means both how early you get them and at what level they come in and how useful they are at that time in the game. The second criteria is their class pool, meaning what class they start as, which ones they have access to, and which ones might be useful for them to get through a marriage or buddy seal. And finally, the last consideration is their personal skill and growth rates, what makes them unique or good or bad versus another person of the same class with more or less the same options. So evaluating Corrin based on those three statistics. First of all, availability, perfect. Literally has to be in every chapter. Starts out at a decent level of power. In fact, is one of the only usable units for a large part of the early game, especially in the prologue chapters if you choose to play them. So perfect score there. Class-wise, Corrin also has an enormous, ridiculous, stupid class selection because not only does he start as a Lord, which is one of the only, or rather, Nor Prince or Princess, which is an exclusive class, you also only get one other one. So you'd maybe think, oh, you know, whatever, this is not so good. But you get to choose the second class you want. And on top of that, you can also get literally any other class in Conquest by just having an A support or better with that unit if they're the same gender. If they're opposite gender, you have to S support them, unfortunately. But, I mean, it still leaves an enormous number of options open to Corrin. He can be he or she can be basically any class in the game, which makes him an absurdly good unit from that perspective as well. And finally, the personal skills and growth rates. Corrin has a really good personal skill, in my opinion. He gives a supported ally, as in someone who is in the attack position or defense position with Corrin, as long as the other unit is in the lead position, as in they are the one attacking or defending, and Corrin has a C support with them, that unit will gain plus 10 hit rate, plus 2 damage, and they will receive 2 less damage from enemy attacks as well. Very, very helpful skill. It's a combination of some of the better skills in the game, to be honest, though it is limited that it only benefits supported units whom he has a support of C or higher with. So it's a little restrictive, but very powerful when used properly, although you will often have Corrin in the lead position, so therefore I find it kind of more useful in attack positions so that you don't have to say, oh, one is supporting the other exclusively. They can support each other both, you know, in attack position. That's why it's such a powerful tactic. His growth rates are very well balanced. He has really high strength in particular, so even if you don't give it a boon or any kind of bonus, maybe it's even a little penalized, you still will get really high growths out of it. The magic is another interesting twist because you actually get the highest growth rate bonus besides luck for increasing your magic, so there is a temptation there to say give him the boon for magic and make him a magic user, but it only gives him a 50% growth base without the class bonuses, so it's a little questionable even then, but still not a bad idea by any stretch, and if you want a magic-based Corrin, it's certainly a good option. His HP is not bad, his defense and resistance are pretty okay, defense in particular, pretty dang good. Luck, speed, skill, all averaging out around 40, 45, pretty normal stuff. Now remember, these are numbers before you add on the bonuses from your class, so they were not exactly reflective of the final totals. So by this point, I think it's pretty clear that my rating for Corrin is absolutely use. In fact, you literally have to, so it doesn't even matter, but I'm going to say he's a really good unit. Use him absolutely. Now, that being said, what are the builds to use? Now, my first suggestion for you is plus magic minus luck cavalier. And you might be saying to yourself, Well, if you're going to choose magic as your boon, why make your talent a physical class? That makes no sense. And you'd be right, except for the fact that you only really need to be able to use swords to make this build viable. The 11 sword is a really powerful, high might, double attacking, and magic 1 to 2 range weapon. There are downsides such as low avoid, I believe, but despite that, it's widely considered to be one of the most powerful weapons in the game, especially for mid-game times when you're going to be running into a lot of like roadblock in terms of difficulty. So I highly recommend this build because of the fact that you will be able to use 11 swords so well. Now you might be saying again, why Cavalier? Why not just stick with the Lord class or something similar, you know? Specifically, you choose Cavalier because it gives you Elbow Room, which is a skill that just flat increases your damage by 3 whenever you're not on a terrain tile, which is super great. Plus 3 damage at all times. To get that skill so early on is really, really helpful. It'll greatly increase your offensive output immediately. Really cool. Plus, high movement range, also really valuable. Very underrated in some Fire Emblem communities, but high movement range, super, super good. Now, that being said, why did you choose luck as the flaw? Well, luck is widely considered to be the best choice for flaw, since luck is fairly easily gained. Corrin has a high luck stat growth rate to begin with, so you don't have to worry about it too much. And on top of that, you get like an Ashera icon or 2. I'm sorry, they're not called that anymore. Goddess icons, whatever. The items that increase your luck, you get a couple of them early on, and you can just feed them to Corrin. It's just not the most valuable stat anymore. So all that being said, it's a pretty cool build, and from Cavalier you can go into Paladin, I think is the general consensus, so you can get Aegis and a few other cool skills, although Great Knight's certainly an option as well, but you'll lose out on some of the speed growth, which could really hurt. The second main build I want to propose to you is a plus strength minus magic ninja. The ninja class is really powerful because it has the shuriken. Shuriken, or hidden weapons, or whatever they want to call them, let you double attack at 1 to 2 range. Again, this is a big deal. It's a really big deal. And if you switch to it early, you start leveling up that weapon rank right from the beginning, and you can get really powerful shuriken, you know, as they are unlocked for you, and therefore won't have a huge problem with the might of your weapons. On top of that, your high strength growth already paired with a boon of strength will compensate for the fairly low strength growth granted by the ninja class. So you'll be doubling attacking everything, you'll be hitting everything because of your high skill, and you'll definitely be doing lots of damage. So that combined with all the debuffs you can get is a really strong synergy and just is really powerful overall for Corrin. And once you upgrade to a Master Ninja, you get the use of swords back, so you can start using Yato again, and it doesn't even matter that you don't have a high rank in swords, because you'll only be using it for a weapon that doesn't require a weapon rank anyway, so it's better to start leveling up something other than swords. So that's another reason why Cavalier is good, by the way, because you can start leveling up Lancet. But Shuriken is the obvious choice for Ninja. Now, that being said, at some point you should briefly transfer back to Nori and Noble so that you can get the Draconic Hex skill, probably the best debuff in the game. And on top of that, Nori and Trust allows you to use the combat skills of anyone you're paired with. Therefore, having Corrin marry someone with really good combat skills is always a fun option, although that's a little harder in Conquest for sure because of the lack of the Samurai class, but I'm sure you can figure out something. Briefly, I want to touch on 2 possible build options that might be running through your mind. What about Samurai, maybe? You could run Samurai with either a plus magic minus luck build like the Cavalier, or you could run it with the plus strength minus magic build like the Ninja, and it has really good skills like Vantage, Swordfarer, and Astra, so why not do that? Now, I recommend the other classes because of this. The Swordmaster doesn't have easy access to a 1 to 2 range ability, unlike the Ninja that can also double attack. You can throw a sword, but it can only attack once. That being said, you could use 11 sword with the magic build, but one of the main strengths of the Samurai over the Cavalier is the added evasion versus the Cavalier's extra bulkiness and movement. But the problem is the 11 sword already greatly hampers your evasion with a minus 20 evade, which kind of defeats the point. So I feel like it's definitely better to go with Cavalier if you're going the magic build, and if you're going the strength build, it's just such a big advantage to have the 1 to 2 range attacks with the ninja shurikens that it just doesn't make sense to me. It's certainly not a terrible option though, because of the great skills you get, and there is the option of going for a dodge tank build, but in case you didn't know, the random number generation is wonky in Fates. Effectively, if your hit is less than 50, it'll roll a single random number between 0 and 99, and if it's less than your hit, your attack lands. So that means it's whatever you see when you have a less than 50 hit chance is exactly what your chance to hit is. A 15 on your hit is a 15% chance to hit, but that's not true if your hit's above 50, by the way. It's actually completely different formula. It's a really wacky formula. Like, they roll 2 random numbers, triple one of them, and add them together, and then divide the whole thing by 4. The effective result is that you'll hit a lot more at higher hit percentages compared to, like, missing a lot at low percentages. So it's a decent system, but the problem is people at low percentages still have decent chances to hit. So it's not as viable to go for a heavy evasion build with like the Sunrise Katana, which increases your evasion. It's certainly an option, but I don't recommend it too highly. Really briefly, the other option I was talking about is Dragon Stones. Dragon Stones in this game kind of suck. They cannot double attack, period. Just cannot do it. They run off of magic, which is pretty cool because it hits them for resistance instead, which can be a really powerful way of diversifying your damage. But overall, the fact that you're taking Corrin, who is probably one of the most offensively powerful characters in the game, and turning him into a character who can never double attack is pretty sad. I don't think it's a completely shit build. I've run Dragonstone build in Revelations Path before, and I thought it was actually really fun. It did a lot of damage and also was able to tank like a beast. It's really hard to kill Dragonstone Corrin, so there is a slight advantage to it, but I don't recommend it for Conquest. It's just too much of a sacrifice, and there are certainly better tanks. So let's really briefly talk about which gender is better. But seriously, in this game, female is the better choice. If you're going for strictly optimized builds, female is better. Why? Because Jacob is a better unit than Felicia. Not only does he have a much better set of growths and stats, whereas Felicia focuses on magic resistance, Jacob focuses on strength and defense. Much more helpful in the early game, and honestly, kind of overall. Felicia is not bad once she gets Flame Shurikens to augment her magical damage, but until then, Jacob beats her flat out, and reclassing Jacob to something like a Paladin can make him just an unstoppable force. Though he will lose out on freeze staves, and I love my freeze staves. Pairing Jacob up with my unit is also better than pairing Felicia up with my unit, also known as Corrin. Jacob gives a better bonus. It's like a defensive bonus, so it's really more helpful in the long run than that little bit of extra hit and attack that Felicia gives. Overall, I just think Jacob is a much better choice, and therefore female Corrin is a better choice. Also, there's a technicality point of like if you choose a male Corrin and then marry one of the like traditional like original 16 wives or whatever, you'll end up with not enough women to men ratio, and it's really awkward. Like, I have a hard time believing they fucked it up like that, but I mean, whatever. It's just generally better to choose female. You can absolutely run a guy if you want, though. In general, guys, I would say female ninja Corrin with plus strength minus magic is probably the best build for Conquest Lunatic mode. It may not, you can maybe make arguments a different way, but I think that's probably the best build. Plus magic, minus luck cavalier, not a bad option either. So until next time, guys, let me know which character you'd like me to talk about next, and I'll see you next time.